Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Today, inshaAllah ta'ala, we will be covering the topic which we had the title on the flyer, How to Learn Islamic Sciences. And this topic is important, specifically for Muslims who were raised in the West, where we were far from the upbringing that Muslims in the Muslim countries were upon. So us learning the religion and making ta'ammuq and going in detail with the intention to practice, and as we know from the spiritual ablution, it is to remove the filth, remove shirk, remove hate, remove lust, remove laziness, remove irresponsibility, all of the qualities that destroy a nation or a people. The spiritual ablution is to remove it. So us gaining fiqh removes or will help us remove that which we struggle with. And then after that, we will be able to adorn ourselves with the good qualities that Islam has presented to the Muslims past and present, and to the Ummah, the nations past and present. I remember sitting with Shaykh Hassan al-Banna, rahimahullah ta'ala, and he was giving his Tuesday class, or his class on Tuesdays, in the area called Heliopolis at Masjid at-Tawheed. The Shaykh was sitting, waiting for his class. As everybody that used to go to the class, they will remember that sometimes the Shaykh will come early. So I finished praying my 2 raka'at, or I don't know if I prayed 2 raka'at or I was just sitting waiting for the class, but I knew the Shaykh, he was praying, and I was right next to him. He turned to me and wiped my hand with an oil, and then he started to advise me. And then I began to let the Shaykh know some of the things that I was trying to do with my talab al-ilm. So I told the Shaykh that I wanted to go to the village to sit with Shaykh Raslan, hafidhahullah ta'ala wa rahimahullah shaykhuna, because I seen that he was mutafannin. He was one who was well versed in different sciences. He was covering books like Ad-Durr Bahiyya. He was covering books like Umdat al-Ahkam. He was covering books on Mustalah of Hadith. So I informed Shaykh Hassan al-Banna humbly that I would like to go benefit also from some of that knowledge, because he's teaching on a daily basis. So Shaykh Hassan al-Banna, rahimahullah, he said to me, focus on Aqeedah, at-Tawheed, and fiqh. Your people need that. Lahif, I want you to pay attention to the word or the advice when he said your people need that. Showing that the ulama, and this is a very important point in respects to discussing fiqh and usul al-fiqh. You'll find that when a fatwa is issued, the scholar, he usually tries to find something out about the mustafti, the one seeking fatwa from him. So the mufti has to be well versed in people's affairs. So Shaykh Hassan al-Banna, being someone who was in close connection with the Western Muslims, whether it be in Europe, whether it be in America, whether it be in South Africa, whether it be in the Muslim world. So he understood our affair very well. He traveled there. So the Shaykh, he said, your people need to focus on Aqeedah and fiqh. So you're going to go sit with Shaykh Raslan, make sure you place inaya, strong concentration on these 2 topics. He didn't say don't study usul al-fiqh. He didn't say don't study the mustalah of hadith, but he said make sure that you take those 2 subject matters very seriously. So when I began to study, as I mentioned in some of my previous videos, I first went overseas in 1999. It took me a year to save the money to go overseas. So I was working from 98 to 99 to save up the money. I landed in the Mamlakat al-Saudiya in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 1999 during Ramadan. Alhamdulillah. After I spent approximately 3 weeks to a month in Saudiya, I traveled to Pakistan. And one of the books that I studied after I learned Arabic was a book called al-fiqh. Fiqh Made Easy by Sheikh Sedlan. And when we discuss this topic of how do we learn Islamic sciences, the first thing we must know is that every science has a key. Whether we're discussing secular knowledge, whether we're discussing religious knowledge, you'll find, for an example, an engineer, they have a set curriculum, they have set books, and they have qawa'id, they have rules that govern their science. So sciences in al-Islam, ulum, they also have qawa'id that govern that discipline. So when I studied Taysir al-Fiqh, this was my introduction to sciences. But at that time, I still was a novice. I still was new. So I didn't understand the application. So I was sitting with a brother by the name of Muhammad, and he was one of the strongest students at that time in Pakistan. And he encouraged me to study usul al-fiqh. So he started to teach me usul min ilm al-usul by Sheikh Salih al-Uthaymeen. So when we discuss sciences, we'll find that in the mustalah, or in the lugha, the language, we have words that denote certain meanings, or we have qawa'id that those qawa'id are applied in certain circumstances. For an example, if something is haram in al-Islam, it's something that we're supposed to stay away from. So Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul, he gave an example of how a scholar must have fiqh of the religion before issuing fatwa. And he gave an example of somebody coming to a scholar, and he asked the scholar, I want to open a business, but the mebna, the building that I want to rent out, next door to the building is a place where they sell music, and on the other side they sell khamr, and in the other side there's a brothel, prostitution. He said because of the circumstance, the scholar would issue a fatwa saying, no, it's not permissible for you to open a business next to a place where they sell al-aghani and playing al-aghani loud, and they have a place where they're selling khamr, a place where women are being prostituted. This can affect your iman. He said, but then the fatwa can change, because the person comes back and he says, Sheikh, the place that sold khamr, shut down. The place that was playing that loud music and selling music, shut down. The place where prostitution was being, the transactions of prostitution was taking place, shut down. Now, the sheikh would issue a fatwa saying it's permissible for you to rent that building out. And this issue still needs detail, because I don't want somebody to say, oh, I can't rent out a building because they're selling music. I'm not saying that that is the actual fatwa. I'm just giving the example that the sheikh brought, that when you go to the mufti, he is one that looks into the affair, and then he takes the adillah al-shara'i and he applies it to that affair. That's what we call in al-Islam, or in the books of fiqh, al-nazila, an issue that occurs, and that nazila, that issue, the scholars, they weigh the harms, the benefits, they look at the qawa'id, and that's where these books come into play. Now, when we rewind and we go back, when we first started seeking knowledge in the West, most of us know, or many of you know, that fiqh and usul al-fiqh and qawa'id and dhawabit and usul, with us at that time, was the books we would read on fatwa. So this is a book that every student of knowledge had. It's called Durus wa Fatawa fi Haram al-Makki by Sheikh al-Uthaymeen. Lessons and fatwa, verdicts that were given in the Haram of Mecca by Sheikh Uthaymeen. He was known to give fatwa in the Haram during his classes, after his classes, during Umrah, during Hajj, in his masjid, on radio stations. Wherever the Sheikh was at, he was issuing fatwa. So we would take those books of fatwa, and when people would ask us questions, we would just go to the fatwa, not knowing how to appropriate the qawa'id, not knowing that fatwa aren't just given to people without knowing their circumstance. And we can't just take a fatwa that was issued for a specific person or a specific situation and apply it to another person's situation and say, this is the hukm al-shar'i for you. So this also emphasizes the importance of learning usul al-fiqh, learning those principles, learning qawa'id al-fiqh, and what is the difference between usul al-fiqh and qawa'id al-fiqh? What is the difference, or what is the relationship between usul al-fiqh and mustalah of hadith? Because some of the terms you'll find in hadith and fiqh are the same, like mustafid. What do the scholars of usul say this word mustafid means, and what do the scholars of hadith say this word means? Some of them say it is a hadith that is sound. The rawat, or those who narrated the hadith, were plentiful, and on down to the rest. But it has different connotations and different meanings. So studying the usul, we learn when to apply qawa'id. And Imam Shafi'i, rahmatullah alayhi, he was from the first to lay out the blueprint and the prototype, which is his book on usul al-fiqh. And then many scholars after that came and expounded and commented and wrote shuruh, explanations to this imperative and important topic. So this is another book of fatwa. It's called Fatawa Arkan al-Islam wal-Aqidah. This is another book that was gathered from the fatwa of Shaykh Uthaymeen, dealing with aqidah, dealing with tahara, purification, dealing with salat, dealing with zakat, dealing with saum, and dealing with hajj. I remember sitting with Shaykh Hassan al-Banna, and he gave me this as a gift. This is his book, As-Siyam al-Junnah, that fasting is a protection, is a shield. And in this book, Shaykh Hassan al-Banna, after giving his different positions on fasting and the person who is fasting, if they break their fast, if they fall into error during their fast, if they have to make up a day, the different rulings connected or related to fasting. But at the end of the book, Shaykh Hassan al-Banna brought the fatwa of Shaykh Uthaymeen dealing with hajj, dealing with siyam, fasting, because as we know, the science that Shaykh Uthaymeen was known to be a specialist in was fiqh and also hadith. Shaykh Uthaymeen was mutafannin. He was a scholar who was encyclopedic, and he was one who was vast in his subject matters. So if we look at the stages of fiqh in the West, books start coming out like Mulakhas al-Fiqhi. Mulakhas al-Fiqhi goes over the chapters of Tahara, the chapters of Janazah, the chapters of Ina, the dishes and containers that we use, how to clean them when they're dirty, to the rest. Miyah, the chapters of water, the chapters of Buyur, business transactions, all of these different chapters. A chapter on a qadi. What is the role of a qadi? What is his qualities? What is his qualifications? Then we have books like Fiqh al-Muyassir, which is one of the books I will be teaching in a live class. Alhamdulillah, I put together my class schedule. So starting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I will be giving live classes. Bitawfiqillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one of the reasons I wanted to just bring an introduction to the importance of this topic is because if we don't have fiqh of the religion, and we don't know how to apply sciences. We don't know usul al-fiqh. We don't know mustalah of hadith. We don't know usul al-tafsir. These sciences are what govern our practice of our religion. So when you have ibadah, you have a worship, an act of worship. How do you know how to perform that act of worship? How do you know what is wajib? How do you know what is sunan? How do you know what is mandub? How do you know the different variations of practicing or ways of practicing that action of ibadah without fiqh and without sciences? So one of the books that I will be teaching in my new classes that I will be giving live is Muqaddamat fil Fiqh al-Islami, an introduction to Islamic fiqh by Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul, the Mufti of Mecca. I made a mistake in one of my classes. I said the Mufti. I don't know which Sheikh I was speaking about. I was just so excited that Sheikh Salih Suhaimi, Hafidhullah, was appointed as the Mufti of Medina, and Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul was appointed as the Mufti of Mecca. And many of the students of knowledge, and I am a small student of knowledge, I can't say that, because after sitting with scholars and people that are mutafannin, mutadalli', well engrossed in knowledge, and those who have traversed this path for longer than we have been alive, you understand your level after that. But I was making a point that many of the students of knowledge, we used to call Sheikh Wasiullah Abbas the Mufti of Mecca, the Haram of Mecca. Because anybody knows that when you travel for Umrah or Hajj, or you're going to the classes and you stumble upon the Alama, the Muhaddith, one of the last standing scholars of Hadith of our era, Sheikh Adam Ethiopi, Sheikh Yahya Mudarrisi, all of these different Mashaykh and Fudala and Jibal and mountains have passed away. Sheikh Muhsin Abad, Sheikh Wasiullah Abbas are from the last standing scholars within the Mamlaka of Saudiya that are scholars that are well known for their in-depth knowledge of the science of hadith. So that was just a side point. I was speaking about Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul being the Mufti of Mecca. And this is one of the books that we will be covering. And it is a tremendous book. And I will be taking also from one of his books called Taghayyur al-Fatwa, When Fatawa Change. And in this book, speaking about how fatawa alter and change according to the circumstance and according to the different proofs or different basira, insight of that scholar into the issue of the mustafti, of the one seeking a fatwa, he mentions in this book that when someone goes to a scholar, they go seeking his adillah. And then back to the book Muqaddamat fil Fiqh al-Islami, the Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul, he goes over when is it appropriate for someone to be a blind follower of a scholar, and is this permissible? And in cases, if a person is ammi, general person, doesn't have insight into the sciences, his language isn't to a level where he can understand, he can follow a scholar according to that which he is upon, that which, from what is correct, and we'll go into that in detail. Likewise, the Shaykh, he goes into the atwar, the stages of usul al-fiqh, how it was compiled, and the different books that came out of that tremendous book that Imam Shafi'i initiated. Then he goes into the different ikhtilafat of the ulama when it comes to subject matter, when it comes to issues. And this is extremely important for Muslims in the West to understand. How do you differ with your brother when it comes to masail? Because we know that masail are rabt bid dala'il. Issues are tied to proof. So we can't argue about issues we know nothing about, or we don't understand the sciences behind them, and we're just being stubborn or biased to what we feel is correct. This is incorrect. These sciences were compiled through tedious and laborious effort. Scholars of the past differed. For an example, there is a known issue that took place between Sheikh Muhsin Abad and Sheikh Albani dealing with fasting on Yom al-Sabt, fasting on Saturday. And I will be bringing this issue between Sheikh Muhsin and Sheikh Albani, rahimahullah Sheikh Albani wa hafidhahullah Sheikh Muhsin. There is a well-known issue. If a person doesn't know Qawa'id, he might follow one position and then criticize his brother for the next. The position that Sheikh Albani held of making irsal when standing in prayer, and Sheikh bin Baz making qabd, putting his right hand over his left. We're going to bring the adillah that Sheikh bin Baz rahmatullahi alayhi based his position on, and the adillah that Sheikh Albani based his position on. But look at the shahid, look at the benefit. Sheikh bin Baz, I have audio of him praising Sheikh Albani. I have audio which I will be putting out there for the public and the community to hear the way scholars dealt with issues they disagreed in. Now, we're not talking about issues of Aqidah. We're not talking about issues of Bid'ah, because we're not going to be imbalanced also. Because we have a group, for an example, like the Ikhwani Muslimin, that they have within their minhaj lying. They have within their minhaj being sneaky and cunning to get in the ranks of the Muslims to position themselves. So we're not now going to say nobody should be spoken ill of. The religion is kumbaya, daishiki, we're all brothers. That's not true. But we're also not going to be extreme and continue on with stabbing and undercutting and undermining because of issues that are vast. So inshallah ta'ala, I hope that everybody took some benefit from this small introduction. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I will be giving my live classes. Alhamdulillah, now all of my classes will be in a schedule where anyone who wants to benefit from my humble efforts, they can come online and benefit. And I also would like to end with a humble request. No backbiting. No coming to my class because you're against this one and, oh, now I want to click up with Abu Maryaam. I've never been like that. Please don't bring that nonsense to me. One of the things that I have done is I got with a group of brothers and we're traveling to make Umrah and Hajj every year. Twice a year we will be traveling to sit with the ulama. I come from the era where you return your issues to the ulama. So if I have an issue, and I say that about myself, I would clarify my issue on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, because Islam does not allow someone to let their reputation be tainted. But after I clarify, I will be at the house of Sheikh Salih Fawzan, at the masjid of Sheikh Salih Fawzan. I will be visiting the Mufti, Abdul Aziz Ali Sheikh. I will be visiting Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh, Sheikh Ali Nasser Faqihi in Medina, Sheikh Muhyiddin in Medina, Sheikh Ubaid, Sheikh Rabi', Sheikh Wasi al-Abbas, Sheikh Salih Suhaimi, Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul. It is no reason for us to play on the internet going back and forth when right between us are scholars that we claim are the inheritors of the prophets. I'm not the inheritors of the prophets. I inherited what came from North Philly and the streets of Philadelphia, and I'm trying to get clean from that. So I'm not an inheritor of the prophets. So since I'm not an inheritor of the prophets, I don't play like that. Never have, never will, inshallah. So I say that if I don't do that, I pray that people don't come to my platform backbiting. And why do I say I don't want that on this platform? One of the things that I have been focusing on is putting out and releasing the documentaries of the scholars. Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ibrahim, it was known that he would not allow students to come to his class backbiting. And Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh, or Ali Sheikh, not Ali Sheikh, Ali Sheikh, he said that specifically the Mufti, Muhammad ibn Ibrahim, would not allow people to backbite other students or other people of knowledge. Why? Because it would push a large group of people away from them. I have self-respect for my brother, even if I had an issue with him, that I know not to criticize in public before returning to Ahlul Ilm, which is the basis of our da'wah. So us developing this traveling package, and it's not a traveling package where we will have people come with us and they pay to go. No, it's a group of brothers that I will be going over with, that I know and I trust, because I will be sitting with the ulama. We will be initiating seminars and going over the biographies. As you will be seeing, I put together a large amount of documentaries that now we're going to put out one by one, bi-weekly, until all of them are out. I've done almost 20 biographies during the course of 15 years. And we also done them in film form. A lot of people don't know that I went back to school by the mercy of Allah for graphic design, coding, web design, video editing. So now I'm able to use that skill set to benefit the Muslims on a different level. And I would like to close by thanking the man who sent me back to school. His name was Jamal Ball from 16th and Cyber, 16th and Styles in North Philadelphia. If it wasn't for this brother sending me back to school, I would have never been able to learn these skill sets. And now I'm being able to benefit the Muslims on this level. And I would like to let people know that I was studying graphic design, web design, code while I was sitting with the ulama. And I want to close with that to show that seeking knowledge is a balance. We have to take care of our dunya and we have to learn our deen. هذا ونصلي على نبينا محمد. over with, that I know and I trust, because I will be sitting with the ulama. We will be initiating seminars and going over the biographies. As you will be seeing, I put together a large amount of documentaries that now we're going to put out one by one, bi-weekly, until all of them are out. I've done almost 20 biographies during the course of 15 years. And we also done them in film form. A lot of people don't know that I went back to school by the mercy of Allah for graphic design, coding, web design, video editing. So now I'm able to use that skill set to benefit the Muslims on a different level. And I would like to close by thanking the man who sent me back to school. His name was Jamal Ball from 16th and Cyber, 16th and Styles in North Philadelphia. If it wasn't for this brother sending me back to school, I would have never been able to learn these skill sets. And now I'm being able to benefit the Muslims on this level. And I would like to let people know that I was studying graphic design, web design, code while I was sitting with the ulama. And I want to close with that to show that seeking knowledge is a balance. We have to take care of our dunya and we have to learn our deen. هذا ونصلي على نبينا محمد